lot of the technologies are about carbon capture and burying, which is great. That's important and it's going to be very important. But the only way to create a new carbon economy is if you can reuse the carbon.
Welcome to The Switch. I'm Elena Casas. Humans emit about 36 billion tonnes of carbon dioxide a year, and increasingly some experts are arguing that if we are to stand a chance of keeping global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees, we need to not just cut that number, but actually suck some of it out of the air. The IPCC concluded in 2018 that we'll need to capture about 10 billion tonnes a year by the middle of the century. But most of the technologies thus far proposed to do that are still unproven at scale. One company that is already capturing carbon is LanzaTech. Their CEO is Dr. Jennifer Holmgreen, and she joins me now. Jennifer, hi, thanks for joining us. To start with then, I know your carbon capture process involves gas fermentation. Can you explain briefly how that works?
Absolutely. You're used to producing ethanol for beer using sugar as the resource. And what we do is we do exactly the same thing, except that we use gases. We use carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. We prevent that from going out into the atmosphere. The bacteria ferments it, eats it basically, and makes ethanol. We have 3 commercial facilities running, one at a steel mill and 2 at ferroalloy plants. And essentially the pollution, instead of going out the flue, ends up being converted to ethanol.
Now, there seem to be quite a range of carbon capture startups at the moment, suggesting all kinds of solutions from burying the carbon in the ground to reusing it in other ways. So what makes your technology stand out, do you think?
I think 2 ways. One is that it's already at commercial scale. That's actually quite important, right? Because now we're getting it down the cost curve. No technology risk remains. But I think the other thing that we right now are unique in is that we actually reuse the carbon. A lot of the technologies are about carbon capture and burying, which is great. That's important and it's going to be very important. But the only way to create a new carbon economy is if you can reuse the carbon and find alternate ways to make all of the things we use in our daily lives.
Carbon capture is one of the hottest areas of climate research, with companies springing up offering solutions that range from burying carbon underground to turning it into concrete or extracting pure solid carbon from the gas using electrolysis. One thing these experimental technologies have in common, though, is high cost. LanzaTech, though, says its process can be profitable straight away.
Right now, our cost per carbon dioxide is actually quite high, as you would expect. But we're actually competitive with producing ethanol from agri-waste. And so right now, if you compare us as a carbon capture solution that also makes a product that is cost competitive, it can be sold, that means this is actually a profitable way to abate carbon.
LanzaTech has a wide range of partner corporations, turning its ethanol into everything from fragrance to fabric.
Gucci's latest perfume, 100% of the ethanol comes from recycled carbon emissions. H&M has a couple of pieces in their Move collection, also made from recycled carbon emissions, the polyester. Zara's made a cocktail dress, and we're also making aviation fuel. We're turning that ethanol, that carbon emission, into sustainable aviation fuel. So really, ethanol is just an intermediate. It's a way of taking all of this pollution, all of this waste, and turning it into things we need.
Carbon capture offers the possibility that we could undo some of our mistakes, but the technology will need to be deployed quickly.
I think everybody's talking about it. I think the only difference is the time scale that people think is important to act. We believe there's tremendous urgency, and so we just want to throw as many of these plants out there as possible.
Now, many climate scientists are critical of carbon capture technology in general, saying that you're providing an excuse for polluters, for power companies to continue to emit carbon dioxide if they believe that technology will capture it. What do you say to that argument?
look, we're trying to find an alternate way to make the things we use in our daily lives. And it turns out we do use emissions from things like steel mills and refineries. If that is an excuse to continue to pollute, then I say I'm going to find a way to displace all of that fresh fossil carbon. We're never going to get gigatons of carbon out of the air unless we do use carbon capture.